Hi guys, welcome back to another Overthrow Disc Golf video. As always, thank you so much for tuning in. Today we are talking about the actual #1 problem I think keeps people from learning the brace. Let's get started. So the #1 problem that I see students struggle with is how they think about the brace. Now this just happens because of where we're at in disc golf and disc golf coaching. There's a lot of videos out there, a lot of content out there, and a lot of people struggling with the brace. Long story short is you're only as good as your thoughts are about something, and we've got a lot of thoughts out there in the disc golf world. Now, I should say that I'm going to talk about thoughts that other coaches have, and they're my friends, right? I talk to all these coaches, good friends with them. I don't agree on this point with some of my colleagues that the hips generate power. Okay, if you have any sports background, you've coached in anything else, that is a crazy sounding statement, I know. But I would argue that the hips serve more as a block, or the brace is not just your foot, but it's trying to stop your hips from moving. So with that being said, I or any of the other coaches on Overthrow are not going to teach during a walk-up that hips generate power. So we've got 3 new, mostly new, tiers on our Patreon that I need to tell you about. First, the $50 daily form review tier, we're going to be onboarding Cam, or the T Less Traveled, as you might know him. He's going to be our budget option for now. I'm sure he will quickly move up, and then we'll add another coach there, but that is Monday through Friday, daily form reviews. It's a really, really good value option. And then Mikey and I are both doing daily form reviews at $100 a month. And then we're also both doing a $200 tier per month. What does that get you? That gets you 2 half-hour sessions per month and daily interaction, Monday through Friday. That's just way closer to what we have with our tennis students. It's not just like, okay, only talk to me during our lesson and that's it, right? So I know it's a high price point for a lot of disc golfers, but if you're trying to get a lot of work in, the value's there. So without further ado, let's get a little deeper into the brace. Okay, so a little nerdy here. As the sport has been drawing from other sports in terms of how do we generate power, we've drawn from things like baseball and golf. These sports primarily use a neutral stance, or take a sport like tennis that uses an open stance. That's regarding my footwork. Neutral stance is saying that if I'm throwing that way, my hips are 90 degrees off the target. Open would be if my hips were this way. Closed would be if my hips were back. So anything past 90 would be closed, okay? Disc golf, we use closed, okay? Sports that use neutral or open stance or semi-open, they generate powers from the hips. What does that mean? That means that I push off of the ground, right? Also our forehand, but I push off of the ground with this front foot. It clears my hip, and that creates this chain effect that starts lagging things, and I start stretching away from like the ball, for example, and then stretches my hip, stretches my torso, stretches my chest, and eventually, wha-cha, I attack, right? And so you're building power from the ground up. That is the way that most sports, and how we do on our forehands, by the way, generate power. In disc golf, we use a closed stance, right? So if I'm throwing, wow, the lefties are just getting it today because I'm throwing lefty for whatever reason. We use a closed stance, means my hips are back. When our hips are closed, it's blocking their rotation naturally, right? Question: if we wanted to open our hips most quickly and have the hips rotate to start pulling stuff open and have that drag everything else forward, why would we use a closed stance? Right? A closed stance is used to stop things. The data gathered by my friend Finnish national coach Ioannis and gathered by Coach Chris Taylor shows that the hips are not a power generator, but that we should think of the hips as an anchor or as a block for the throw. Okay? That's where I stand. That's where our coaches on this channel stand. If you don't agree with that, really important point, you probably should not get coaching from this channel or from coaches on this channel, because it is a different way of coaching. And if you start getting a little bit from here and you start listening to footwork advice from someone else, those don't mix, right? So these ideologies don't mix that well. So I would stick with one coach, whether it be us or somewhere else, either way. So we don't generate power from our hips. Our hips do not rotate from the ground up. Instead, you should think about the brace this way. I'm gonna have my assistant Vanessa. Vanessa was unavailable. I'll actually go righty here. So if this is my throwing line here at about 12 o'clock, usually when we step through here, we get turned, right? We're throwing about here at about this 11 o'clock position, right? Our footwork is set to create a base that resists our throw here, right? At this position. So if I had Dakota here try to pull me forward, I'm set up in my best position to resist, right? Now notice, when I do this, my weight is coming off of my back foot because he's pulling me forward, right? This is why we de-weight the back foot. If I decided to twist and go forward with my hips at this point, it would be much harder to resist him. When someone's pulling on you, you don't resist them like this, right? You resist them like this, right? And this is the position that you see with a brace, is that, go ahead and actually pull me from 12 now, right? And so this is the position that you see with the brace, is that we're resisting our throw, which is going forward, okay? Thank you. Right, so that's how you need to think about setting up your brace. Now let's address the rotation aspect. Hips can rotate from on top, right? Not just underneath. If I try to keep my lower body relatively in place and I have Dakota try to spin me around, you're gonna see, go ahead, you're gonna see that my hips are gonna open up first because he's pulling here and he's pulling my chest forward, right? So my hips, even though I'm not pushing from my lower body, my hips can turn open. As long as my torso starts moving, my hips are attached to my torso, right? So because of that attachment, we see some opening happen, right? But I think if you're trying to learn to brace, you have to have one thought, and it needs to be stop. At least in the beginning, you need to think, how do I stop this train from going forward? And I think you kind of miss out on the stop concept when you say, okay, I've got to plant, but also I've got to transfer power up. Now it's like a whoop, this is a move. Something's moving, a wave of energy up my body, right? Something's moving, and you're just not gonna stop as well. The brain's very simple. It needs a very simple cue, stop. So I'm gonna give you a couple of drills here that focus on stopping. These are just a very small portion of what I use with students. Now, we're just gonna walk up at a pace that we can stop. Unless you're in a constant state of roaming, you have the ability to stop at some speed. So we're gonna go that speed that you know you can stop at. Right, so here, I'll just go with this. Boom, stop. I'm gonna try to stay here. Note, it's way easier to stop if you're lower in an athletic stance, right? But we're gonna go here. We're gonna make this real chunky. Stop. Okay, now I'm gonna throw, trying to keep my lower body here. I did it. Of course, that's an exaggeration. We don't see pros do that, right? It's a drill. You need to do that drill, and once you get that consistently, where you're not going and stepping through, but you're stopping, and it looks like that, then we can allow our body to move when it wants to move, right? So you were on this end of the spectrum, which was my body's moving forward without me wanting to move it forward, or maybe you're trying to force it forward. We need to learn to stop, right? So that drill, among the other drills, gets you to stop. Eventually, we're gonna try to Goldilocks that sucker and let our body move naturally. So you get that drill, you're doing it 8, 9, 10 out of 10 times, time to move on to the next step. We're gonna try to do that, but I'm gonna let my body move forward, not twist it forward. So I'm gonna stop. And now I'm gonna not just tighten everything up and stay here with everything I've got. I'm gonna let my body move forward naturally, right? Which kind of looks like that. I did not push everything forward. I did not twist and try to force a hip clear. I stayed loosely and through, and it opened up when it wanted to open up, okay? Hard to tell on your own what's kind of natural and what looks good. That's why we have coaches. Okay, drill number 2. This is one that's a favorite of Finnish national coach Jonas over there, a good friend of mine. On your knees, right? Cannot use your hips when you're on your knees. The good guys can throw, if you got a tech disc, 80% of your speed from your knees, so Jonas says. You want to turn off a little more than normal because it will really go that way. So here we go, from the knees. I stopped. There it is. All right, drill number 3. All right, drill number 3, very simple, dynamic jump, land. I've created a very good base. I'm gonna stay here. Woo! Jump, set a base. Oh, bad throw. Land, stay, throw. Go, Beach, go. Okay, so like I said, I don't think the hard thing to learn is stuff going. I think the hard thing to learn is stopping. Learning to stop. We can all send our hips. We can all rotate really early if we want to. So check out AB's form here, right? And I want you to ask yourself, does this look like a man who's trying to rotate his hips forward? No, I think this is a man who's trying to stop them from moving forward with everything he's got, so much so that he decides it is better for me to jump again on my right foot instead of let my left hip come around, right? I'm not advocating for that because you're not AB, but it very much looks to me like the desire is for him to stay. And the data says the hips are not generating power. So I'm not smart enough to go against that data. And when I tell people to stop, they stop. If I tell them stop and then transfer energy, they go and they don't brace. So personally, I think this is the best shot you have at bracing, is you got to tell yourself to stop and trust that things will go if you're being loose and athletic, right? Not try to tell yourself to go and then trust that you'll stop. It's not going to happen. Such is my experience. Thanks for tuning in. Drop any questions, of course, below. I'm happy to answer them. It's kind of a tough topic to flesh out. So I know there'll be a lot of questions and I'm happy to answer them. All right. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Peace.